What's going on, Jack? We have Jack here from the Drop Step podcast. We're going to do a 2024 rookie redraft since Sam and I are having a difficult time with this, Jack.
Mm-hmm.
This is a hard draft class because normally by this time we have like the top picks are usually either balling out or turning the corner. There's a very obviously defined tier that is at the top of a class. And I feel like because this class is, as we discussed leading up to the draft, probably the weirdest since 2013, where the majority of the best players were found in the middle range of the first round. It feels like this one is a little bit harder for us to wrap our brains around. So we're going to give you the first pick in this redraft. So I think we're going to redraft.
Okay.
We're going to redraft the top 20 at least, because if you do the lottery, it leaves us only with each of us picking like 4 or 5 guys. I want to pick a few different guys. This class is not super, I wouldn't even say it's super deep talented with NBA players, but right now it's obvious that there are a few guys that would be redrafted outside of the lottery that will probably have at least like 5-year NBA careers. So we have some names to pull from. We're going to give you the first pick since you are the guest. We'll have Sam go second, and then I'll go third. So with the first pick, are the Atlanta Hawks sticking with who they drafted in Risacher, or are they going with someone else here at the top of the redraft?
I think we can all agree they took the wrong wing at the top of the draft, and they're going to be selecting Cody Williams here. No,
the true Nepo baby of this draft, Cody Williams.
I'm going to take who I think a lot of Atlanta fans wish they took. Like, I've seen a lot of people say, oh, if only we sort of stayed where we were meant to stay in the draft, we might have this guy. And it was one of my favorites from the class sort of during the pre-draft process. Looks like he's about to get a lot of run now that Jimmy's off the team. I'm going to take Khalil Ware.
I had him number 1 on my board.
My guy, as like the best star bet in the class, basically.
So I had him number 1 on my board. He's someone who obviously showed out, and I liked him pre-draft. I had him 10 on my board pre-draft.
You were high on him. Yeah, I was going to say, you were definitely higher on him than I was, and a lot of consensus was, I would say.
The athletic tool's smart to bet on. He's incredibly athletic. He's massive. Really long wingspan, displayed some shooting touch in college, explosive athlete, and got drafted to pretty much the perfect team for developing these kind of prospects. He's obviously was a top recruit coming out of high school. Things didn't really work out for him. His first year in college, he transfers to Indiana, shows a lot of potential as a pro. And it doesn't really, even now, at the time, it didn't make sense that he fell outside of the lottery. Obviously, he was the first pick outside of the lottery. But now that we've seen him in Summer League, we've seen him in the NBA for a little bit. What do you like most about Khalil Ware's game, and why are you taking him number 1 here?
So I think a big part of it is when he was at Indiana, a lot of the issues that was sort of like put out by a lot of the people covering the draft were the motor. Like, is he actually made for this? Is he up for this? Is he going to apply himself night after night? And there was a lot of concern that he couldn't sort of get to the rim. And then you look at like some of the tape and you realize that everyone is stood under the basket, and really this 7-foot athletic freak is displaying really nice touch from floater range. And instead of everyone going like, oh my God, look at his touch, imagine what's going to happen with NBA spacing, it was like he just doesn't want to get to the rim enough. It's his issue. And I think that we've really sort of seen that sorted out at Miami. He's sort of being spoon-fed alley-oops night after night. I like taking the shooting bet as well. And I think that he's quite light on his feet to the point where we're going to see a lot more of this double big lineup. This might be the guy that sort of saves the back end of Bam Adebayo's career, gives him this second wind where he can play this sort of Aaron Gordon role.
Anthony Davis screaming, it should have been me, not him.
It should have been me. Yeah, exactly. This is what Christian Wood was meant to be for me.
Yeah. It doesn't really make sense once again, I like Sarr in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
I like Ware in the draft. I was a little bit higher on Sarr as a prospect. I think some of that G League Ignite game, which by the way doesn't exist anymore. G League Ignite is gone. But those G League Ignite games, I thought that Sarr displayed a lot of upside, and he's flashed that a little bit in the NBA as well. But it doesn't really make sense if you're drafting for toolsy upside athletic big types, that where would be a guy that would fall all the way down. And like you said, yes, there were motor question marks. There were character questions, I guess you could say, based on his first year. Maybe that was just him not getting along with the coach or whatever. But now that we're sitting here in February, it's obvious that all of that stuff, when you're drafting in a draft like this, like, come on, Tidjon Saloon went with the 6th pick in this draft. Like, if you're taking a swing on a guy, I think the lesson we should take from this is that if it's a weird draft, it's never wrong to bet on like the high pedigree player who has the athletic tools and was fairly productive in college. Like, if you looked at his athletic tools and his production and some of the question marks about him, the guy that he was compared the most to, very different kind of players, but the guy that he was compared the most to was DeAndre Ayton. And I kept saying throughout the process, like, if you got DeAndre Ayton with like the 10th pick in the draft, you would be completely happy with him. The reason why DeAndre Ayton's career hasn't really gone the way that we thought it was because he was the first pick in the draft, had these high expectations, and then got a max contract. Like, now that we see with where this upside, this potential, and we realize that some of the question marks, even though some of those things did come back for Ayton eventually, it seems stupid when you consider the fact that this is just a really bad draft on the whole, that you would not take a swing on this guy in the top 10.
It's just the kind of pick that if it goes wrong, you lose your job, whereas everyone else is maybe slightly more defensible. Like Zaccharie Risacher, you obviously see the argument. Alex Sarr, maybe there's that a little bit more pedigree. But I think, in hindsight, when we're sat here on playback, it's the easy call to make, right?
Right. Well, and also I said before the draft, this is the kind of draft where I take an upside swing.
Yeah.
Because and once again, Tidjon Saloon, when they drafted him on draft night, I was like, sure, fine, who cares? Because the odds of any of these guys becoming like true impact players are lower than your average draft.
And I'd just say, when I was going through this, I've got like 21 players that I might select. I found it fairly easy to get the 21. I found it impossible to sort them. So it's not like there's a massive difference between the guys, right?
Exactly.
Completely agreed. That was like what I was saying to Trill before this thing. It was like, I kind of have like a top 3 or 4. And then like after that, it's just fucking pulling names out of a hat. I mean, here's the only thing I would say about, I know that this probably isn't necessarily the exercise. The one thing I would say is that this selection was probably made a little easier for organization like Miami because they have the infrastructure in place versus like if you're the Atlanta Hawks, you have Trae Young, you have like some interesting things going on. I wonder, like, I can see not wanting to make a gamble on like somebody like with, if there's character, because character concerns can be like, I don't want to like, it's one of those things where it's like, it's a boomer thing, but like also like, it can submarine a guy's career too. Like if like
he had come out after a year at Oregon where he barely played, and I would have said totally agree. But we saw him play for a full year at Indiana and did not have the same issues that he had the year before. That's why I think that some of those things you can just like hand wave off. Away. Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's probably what the right thing to do here was. But, I do think, because I agree, like I don't think I would have taken Ware number 1, but he would have been in my top 3 in some order. So like,
you'll get your number 1 choice here then. So who are you taking with the second pick?
The Washington Wizards, we are selecting Jared McCain. We are getting Steph Curry in DC. We do not have, we are losing our ability to kind of have someone from an international flavor. So we won't have a different night. We will have karaoke night instead.
There you go.
What we're going to do. This is going to be TikTok dances.
I was going to say there's an international force at play with TikTok here.
That's right. Oh, that's what I was saying. He's going to be the Chinese ambassador to this is amazing. Yi Jinlan, they finally, the spirit of Yi Jinlan has come home. That was who drafted Yi Jinlan, right? Was the Wizards or was it the Bucks?
I can't remember, to be honest with
Somebody
you.
in the chat, who drafted Yi Jinlan? Was it the Wizards or was it the Bucks? I can't remember, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, we know that Jared would not be very well liked by some people in Washington because of his support of TikTok, but Wizards fans would be very excited over his acquisition.
Yeah, I just think, obviously Jared got hurt, but I think he would be I think if he had not gotten hurt, he would still be pretty cut and dry, the number one player in this class, and his injury doesn't make me think that he's going to be, anything. Now, you always worry about a guy who has the size issues that Jared McCain does, and maybe that limits his upside a little bit. But I just think the relocation and the movement is like so. It's blasphemous to say Steph Curry, and that's not right, but it's the closest you can come, for some of this stuff. Yeah,
he went to Steph Curry's camp. They took a photo at All-Star Game this past weekend. And once again, like you said, you might be a little bit concerned. Offensively, I'm not concerned about him at all because I just think that he's so smart. He's got amazing touch, one of the best shooters we've ever seen as a rookie. I mean, he was on fire to start his career with the Sixers. After his little bit of, he struggled in summer league, struggled in preseason, but they got him into the NBA. And I mean, he was, we talked about it ad nauseum on this podcast. It was, every week we'd get a new thing. Jared McCain is the first person to start and score 25 games on this efficiency since da-da-da-da-da. And it's all like listed Hall of Famers. So in the production, in the flashes that Sam's talking about in terms of like, I think about that Magic game earlier this year where he had multiple sequences where he's moving so well off of the ball that even if the on-ball stuff doesn't get to the level we think it can, which he flashed this year, having moments where he looked like almost like a Darius Garland or Jalen Brunson type, even if he doesn't get all the way there and develop as, a scorer passer, the off-ball stuff will always be there, even in the playoffs when he's struggling against playoff defenses. If he's high on the scouting report, he's always just smart enough and has such high feel to be able to figure out a way to impact the game on the offensive end. The only thing I'm worried about with Jared is the defense. Like, it's kind of slow-footed. And when we're talking about like the higher end outcomes, I'm not talking about like being a good starter in the NBA. I'm talking about like, if Jared McCain is as good as he showed early in his career and he's on this track to be like a potential superstar player, how limited is he by his athletic tools defensively? Because he can tend to get burnt by smaller guards. He's actually kind of better guarding wings because he's strong and he's got a decent frame than he is with guarding smaller, quicker guards, which I would imagine he'll probably, they'll probably have him do next year with Maxey taking that assignment more so than him. So, I mean, future's bright as hell for Jared McCain. I think that there's a chance that he ends up the best player in this draft, which I liked him in the draft. I was very wrong about him after seeing him in summer league and preseason. And I had him at 11 or 12 on my board. Like I had him in the lottery still because I thought worst case scenario, he was just like a Seth Curry variant, which is like a solid bench guard to fringe starter. And he's proven so far that he has potential to be so much more in the NBA.
One of the first guys to come into Philadelphia and say, yeah, it's really easy to play next to Joel Embiid. He's like, yeah, they just double him and I find the space. And that must have been really refreshing as a 76ers fan to see someone not complain about playing with Joel.
Yeah, right. Paul George taking notes.
Yeah. This is boring to me, playing next to Joel. I just can't do it. But the other thing is about his off-ball movement. Some players you watch and it's like, say you were talking about Jordan Hawkins, you sort of have to completely orient your offense around, we're going to set this guy so many screens and he's going to sprint here, he's going to sprint there. It feels like dependent on the level of stardom Jared can reach, you can either really focus your offense on like making the most of his on-ball and off-ball movement, or you can just say, just sprinkle it in here and there. It's kind of subtle stuff. It doesn't have to be the magic clip that we saw where it looks very Steph Curry-esque. It can be these smart little lifts, these smart little curls. It's not always going to sort of like take your breath away, but it looks like he's very scalable either way.
KOC might have cooked when he said somewhere between Steph and Seth Curry. I mean, you understand why people are concerned to compare anyone to Steph, but physically,
KOC's never been shy about that.
No, he is not. He is not.
Yeah.
But Steph and Seth. I mean, if Steph's play style was mixed with Seth's kind of athletic ability, you might have something like Jared McCain. But the difference is that Jared is very clearly just like a super high field player that is going to figure out a way to impact the game in some way or other. Like you said, like whether he's moving off the ball, whether you let him cook. I mean, the best game of his career so far was, as people point out in the comments, was that game against the Cavs when Joel did not play, when Paul George did not play, when Maxey did not play. And he took the Cavs, who I think are one of the two or three best teams in the NBA, to the brink with a basically fully healthy Cavs team. He had 30 and 8 in that game and was just controlling the offense in a way that I'm legitimately not even kidding. I remember tweeting a few months ago that Jared McCain was probably the best one and done impact guard since Luka, just to compare him to someone that was like a one and done 19-year-old, 20-year-old rookie. And a Mavs fan tweeted back at me. Obviously, they probably wish they could take this back now that they've traded Luka and taken him away. But they said, honestly, I think Jared was better right away in a way that it took Luka a month or a month and a half to figure out NBA defenses and how to make an impact. And Jared was instantly very good. And even like I said, Ja Morant, but someone was like, Ja Morant did 2 years in college. Like Jared for a one and done, it should not have been as good as he was, and will continue to. One of the star upside indicator things that I always look at is scoring on drives, and was historically good at that this year for a rookie.
He was really good. I just want to shout out Vern because he's pointing out that Washington needs another McCain, and they are going to get one. Hopefully this one doesn't end up a Mavericks the way the first one did. Yeah. So we'll think. I think Jared McCain of anyone in this class has the highest star upside. I think some of the things you brought up are completely legitimate about like defense and that kind of hampering some of his thing. But I also worry less about guards as defenders. I think if you can, because like Steph Curry, I know Steph Curry turned himself into like a pretty good defender, but he's not like a prototypical defender. Now he's probably got a little better tools than Jared McCain. I think he's a little taller. I think his arms are a little longer, but like, Steph Curry was not a good defender. He came into the NBA either. Like, and he kind of had to like figure it out, and you kind of turn yourself into this sort of thing. And I think Jared McCain's a hard worker who could do something similar and just make himself like kind of bad. And if you're just kind of bad, then you're fine.
I was gonna say below average. If you could get by with the smarts and the strength that he has, then you can hope. The hope for him is that, as we've talked about before, 5th best defender on the court. That's all you're hoping with Jared. It's like not Trae Young levels, not Anthony Simons at times levels in the NBA, but just the 5th best. Not a disaster on that end. And that's the hope for Jared. I think he could possibly get there. So 3rd pick.
Yep.
I think a lot of people are going to be surprised by this because I had those two guys number 1 and 2 on my board. I had them in a tier of their own. I had Ware and McCain in a tier of their own. And I think a lot of people are going to be surprised by this because it's a player that I haven't really been that high on. But I do think because this class is, I should say, relative to consensus on this player. But I think it's a class that's kind of, like I said, it's kind of weak. It's kind of weird because of the fact that we don't have these top picks that really stand out. And you kind of have to sift through some of the stuff. But I'm going to go with Steph Castle with the 3rd pick here in the redraft.
Okay. All right.
Once again, the thing that I'm most worried about with Steph Castle is the shooting, because the guards who can't shoot rarely ever become stars. Like, that's just the bottom line. You have to be basically a Ja Morant level athlete if you have question marks, Russell Westbrook, that kind of athlete. Steph Castle is not that. But the one thing that he is that he is more wing size than your average guard that fits into this mold. He's 6'5", he's got long arms, he's a smart player. And the one thing that I think that I've seen from him over the course of this season is that as they've gotten a little bit more competent, they've figured some things out. He feels like he has more flashes, stretches, moments where he can show off a little bit of the shooting. The rim pressure is real. Like, it's obvious when you watch him. I think the 2 best driving guards in the class are McCain and Castle. And I think Castle, a lot of that stuff is self-created. He gets to the line a decent amount. I would like to see him continue to work on that, get a little bit stronger, because I think that his upside is tied to his driving game. Like his upside is tied to like, can he get to the rim? Can he get to the line? And can he become a better player based off of that, reading defenses, becoming a better playmaker. He's already a pretty decent passer. I wouldn't say he's like an elite passer, but for a guy who's 6'5", has good athletic tools that can get to the basket, can score around the basket efficiently, can get to the line, and hopefully the others. Defensively, I think that he's already like a solid to good NBA defender, which for rookies is not always guaranteed. I think that especially guys that are like you view as having like offensive upside usually aren't pretty solid as rookies. But he now has the infrastructure to succeed. Like he's the second offensive guard next to De'Aaron Fox. He has Wemby, who I think has potential to be one of the greatest shooting bigs of all time. And that opens up so much for his game. I think he's probably the biggest beneficiary of the Fox trade, to be honest with you. Like, I think that if you look at the fact that right now, like that team just needed NBA players that can fit around Wemby and make the team make sense. Castle's probably the guy that has a little bit less pressure on him now. They will have adequate players around him. And since they've gotten Fox, and even going back like a month or two, like he's starting to really like show off why he was drafted with the 4th pick in this draft. And once again, I'm still swinging for guys that have like either high role player impact or potential star impact if I'm going in a redraft here. And I think if you look at everyone in this draft so far, there's not very many names, but I think he's got to be considered one of them.
I think, to borrow friend of both of the podcasts, like chucking darts verbiage, he kind of looks like a switchblade guard plus, like can do all the switchbladey stuff. You could see him being the primary perimeter defender in a playoff series. You can see him switching on to bigger guys. You can see him, doing the Marcus Smart, like diving for loose balls. Potentially, I think he's really like done well as the roller when Wemby is handling the ball in pick and roll as well. And like you said, Trill, Wemby looks like one of the best shooting big men of all time, or like a prospect. I also think he looks like one of the best pick and roll handler big men of all time. And yeah, he just looks like he's going to be really, really overqualified for the role that he's going to play. And personally, I think once Jeremy Sohan is out of there, or like, banished to the bench, we could really, really start to see this team sort of clean up, because at the moment it feels like their skill sets overlap a little bit. And even with this like cheat code at the 5, I still think the Spurs are trying to cheat a little bit too much and kind of have Sohan and Castle on the floor at the same time. You just can't have that little shooting at the moment.
I was going to say you have because that was the thing that I was kind of trying to figure out with their team after this Fox trade, where it was like Fox wants to cook in the mid range, Castle wants to get downhill. Where does all of this fit together? Because Sohan being the 4, even like you said, even with Wemby being the 5, stretch 5 that he is, you would still want to kind of maximize the players around. Now you're what I would consider like their core. These are their core 3 guys, right? Like Castle, Fox, and Wemby are like the core 3 guys for now, and figuring out a way to make them. I like what Sam said about Castle on a recent episode, where like he might be a Josh Hart variant, where you talk about like someone who's working off of Karl Anthony Towns right now, someone who has leaned into doing less traditional guard wingy things. Like obviously not, he won't be the rebounder that Josh Hart is, but like you said, like setting screens, getting to the basket, spraying out, playing off the short roll, stuff like that. Castle can certainly do that at a minimum. And I think will prove to be, at a minimum, probably a winning player over time, if not a legit star or high-end role player. I think that no one will be upset with getting him with a top 5 pick in a weak draft at a minimum.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest, like, I had Castle a little lower on my board, but I'm not going to like push back too hard.
I think this is my highest that anyone jumped, because I had him 14 on my draft my pre-board draft. Because once again, I was just like, I don't see it if he can't shoot. But he has displayed enough of the other skills that I'm willing to say that over time he might become, an average shooter and be at minimum like a fourth or fifth starter.
I'm still a little concerned about that. And there's, I understand what you're saying though, because he does have kind of a high floor. I think he has a higher floor than a lot of these other guys.
He was always a high floor player for me, which I probably should have had him higher just based on that, to be honest.
Yeah. He's a higher floor player, but my concern is that like right now he's playing pretty well for a Spurs team that is 4 games under 500, something like that. They don't really have a lot of like. They have like some NBA talent, like the higher end, but they don't have like a ton. They're not like the deepest team in the world.
We called them ass all year, basically, and leading into the year, we were like, "This is terrible. How are they doing this to Wemby?" And they have really only succeeded due to the fact that Wemby and like Chris Paul.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, Chris Paul is making the trains run on time in fucking San Antonio. Like if that wasn't happening, like if fascism hadn't come to San Antonio, I don't know if that would have been happening. But
he's already having an influence over Wemby. Wemby's trying to throw the skills competition and hack the fucking system.
My concern is, I think Stephon Castle. I think he is like a winning player, and I think he is in that mold. But I could see him getting squeezed out when it's winning time, similar to how Marcus Smart got squeezed out of the Boston Celtics, because like simply those players don't. That's what I'm saying. Like you can be really valuable at a certain point, but like the rest of the team needs to be built so perfectly around you. And maybe Wemby is that. Maybe Wemby is that like game breaking center talent. But my concerns about Stephon Castle, it's not that he's going to have a long NBA career. He's going to be in the league for 15 years. It's that he's not going to be able to help playoff teams as much as I would like him to, which is kind of why I have him a little lower. So Josh
Hart is they basically, in a way, they've kind of
that would be the model.
I was going to say that they've kind of perfectly built a team around Josh. Like Josh Hart still. He can only shoot at the Wells Fargo Center for some reason. When he sees a Sixers jersey, he wants to ruin my fucking life and get every rebound and make every fucking three for a series. And then he goes back to being a mid shooter. But they got Karl-Anthony Towns. They have every other person on that team. But like you said, you might have to build around that. But I do wonder, and I've thought about this a lot. If you have a shooting big, I know Wemby's obviously a little bit more traditional. In terms of like defensively, he's just eons ahead of Karl-Anthony Towns, obviously.
Right.
But if you have a shooting big that you want to function like a star, whether it's like a Joel Embiid, a Jokic, Karl-Anthony Towns, something that the Sixers have probably lacked, something that the Nuggets have leaned into, and something that the Knicks now have. Is it good to have a Steph Castle type who will do some of the dirty work that is, like you said, setting screens, rolling to the basket, rebounding, doing the things that, like, if you have your best player is a star center and creator, you probably don't want him doing that all the time because it will wear them down over the course of the season. And also it gives you an advantage where if you can get big skills out of guard and wing positions, then take advantage of that.
It's not like a star case, but it's also where we saw Amen Thompson emerge last year as well. Yeah. Like, Alperen Şengün goes out for a stretch. They put Jabari at the 5. Suddenly you have this really, really mobile guy sort of receiving the ball in the short roll. And I'm a big believer in being able to show teams something that they don't see on a night-to-night basis. Castle catching on the short roll. Thompson's the ultimate cheat code in this sense, but
I was going to say
Thompson catching it. Yeah, exactly. Not apples to orange.
Can we give Steph Castle like the most HGH a person has ever taken, and can he read Amen Thompson levels of athleticism? I don't know if it works that way. That would be great. But it's similar theory, and honestly, Hart's done it a lot with the Knicks. Like, we've seen Hart do it with the Knicks. The Sixers a few years ago tried this with Anthony Melton, who was solid at it. He's a worse finisher than me. So it doesn't work when you're trying to, you need to have someone who can connect a play and also complete a play.
Well, and if the corner 3-point shooting is there, I also trust Steph Castle off the bounce more than like Josh Hart. You know what I'm saying? He's going to be able to attack closeouts out of the corner a lot better than a lot of these other guys we're talking about. But, and he's just, he's going to be strong. He's going to be better at the rim. We're going to get to some other guys I would rather bet on than him. But I don't think it's a wild pick. I think this is a totally fine place to pick Castle with those top two guys off the board. So
All right, Jack, you're up. Fourth pick.
Oh, we're not snaking. Okay.
We can do
in
snake
that
draft if you
case-
want. It's easier to follow this way.
No, I'm happy to go.
Nope, we're gonna
And-
Minnesota Vikings you. That's a dated reference for anyone who doesn't remember, but the Minnesota Vikings for 2 straight years almost missed their pick at the NFL draft. So
That is not a UK friendly reference. I can tell you that much. But
well, I'm football brain right now because the Sixers have ruined my life, and the Eagles
Yeah.
are the only thing that I ever have to look forward to. So
The-
anyway,
basically, they're like if the Jacksonville Jaguars played in Minnesota to make it more of a UK friendly reference.
the London
home team.
Jaguars.
The London
Yeah.
home team. Yeah.
I'm going to take my biggest swing, and I think this is the guy that is either going to have, like, if you're a true believer, he stayed where he stayed. If not, he will have dropped eons and eons. I'm going to take Reed Sheppard at 4.
Oh
Wow. Okay.
because Reed, I literally had no idea what to do with him.
Right?
I have him on like my end of lottery now. Like I had him number 1 pre-draft.
Yep.
But also this was all betting on the shooting being as good as it was. And we don't have a large sample of the shooting. The sample we do have is bad in the NBA.
Mhm.
And then in the G League, he shoots the shit out of the ball, has all the confidence in the world, put up 23s in one game and made like 9 of them, I think. So are you just making a bet that like this is just a little bit of a rut and that he will eventually, as he gets more playing time, he will show why he was drafted that high?
Yeah, it's a confidence issue, I think. It's a confidence and a physicality issue. And it's not like he's arrived in Washington where they're happy to lose by 25 every night and they're happy to say, like, yeah, go out there, run 25 pick and rolls. The chances have sort of been few and far between. And I know that he was in the rotation to start the year. I was really excited to see that. And then I kept checking in on box scores and seeing, like, why isn't Reed Sheppard scoring any points? Why isn't he shooting the ball? But from the point of view of he was number 1 on my draft board too, I think some of the defensive stuff is really translating where you're still seeing the steal rates, you're still seeing the block rates being sort of sky high. I think the feel for the game is there. And I'm just a believer that, yeah, Troll, like, I don't think that the shooting has disappeared overnight. I think that he is going to be a great shooter. And I think that once we sort of like get a sidekick in there, or once he gets, who was it that was telling me this before the draft? It was basically, it might have been neutral. Like, he's just a haircut away from being the consensus number 1 overall pick. Get the fade.
He's got to get
the fade, and he's going to be there.
Exactly. The Nick Sirianni, change your name from Reed to Isaiah, and your swagger will be on 100. Like, his name is Isaiah, and he goes by Reed, which is his middle name. I think that if he changed the name to Isaiah, like, if you want to talk about, like, getting your confidence back, like when Harden's back in town with the Clippers, have him take you to some strip clubs, shave your hair, go by Isaiah, and he will be the guy that we need him to be. Also, Ime Udoka, who I think is a really good coach, is probably not the best coach for a rookie that's having confidence issues.
Yeah.
Like, most coaches are not going to let a guy play through their mistakes. Ime is never going to let him do that, especially when the team is winning. Like, if the team was where they were 2 years ago, maybe he just says, fuck it. We got to see what we have here in Reed Sheppard. But I think that Reed's probably going to have a pretty short leash with this team. And it sucks because every time I watch Houston, I go, man, they could really use the version of Reed Sheppard we thought that he was going to be, because they get so much of the other skills from their other positions that they really just need guys who can shoot. And Reed not being that guy so far has kind of, messed up this team, especially when Fred VanVleet is out of the lineup.
I had him 10 on my board, and I thought I was going to blow everyone's mind by picking him that high. So, unveiling my I'm still not out because of everything you just said about the steals and the block rates and some of this other stuff that indicates, like, he's not he can be on an NBA court, even if the shot doesn't like totally working, but like when he does turn into this nuclear shooter that we all thought he could. I think I had him number 1 on my board. You had him number 1 on your board. I think we all have him number 1 on our board. I think so I can't like quit Reed. And like we talked about, this is a high success context where he is going to have a shorter leash. He's a coach as we brought up, that is not going to tolerate some of that. He's also on a team that is one of the most talented like wing cores in the NBA too. Like you're playing next to fucking. I mean, I know some of these guys are hurt, but like Tari Eason, Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith, Fred VanVleet is your starting point guard. Dylan Brooks, they can't keep off the court because he's been moving different and shooting threes. Like this is like a very hard. It is a very hard context to get your footing. Now that all that said, I really wish he was shooting a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean that was
terrifying.
That's why you drafted him.
Yeah,
you drafted him because he was an insane shooter in college.
Yeah.
Who you guys talk about the steal and block rates? If you watch Kentucky last year, they were a different team when Reed Sheppard was on the court.
Yes.
Like Reed impacted the game. So, and this is not just like a calculator rat thing. Like if you watch, I watched Kentucky more than any team last year because I love Reed, I love Rob, and I watched, funny enough, Justin Edwards was the guy I came away least impressed with, who's actually proven to be a pretty solid rookie for the Sixers so far. But watching those games last year, when Reed would check in off the bench, instant flips, runs would happen because he was everywhere defensively, because he could move the ball so well, because he was elite from the mid-range, he was elite on threes. The things that you worried about with him were things I didn't think would matter as a rookie in Houston, which was like, okay, well, the handle might not be great. All right, well, he'll develop slowly. He's not going to be the ball handler there. They have wings who can handle the ball, like Sam just said. They have bigs who can handle the ball. He'll be able to morph a role similar to what Jared McCain has with the Sixers. And like the reason why I remember having McCain not outside of my lottery, because I was like, if you looked at like the last 2 months of the season, him and Reed Sheppard were very similar statistically. And I remember being like, well, if Reed's going with the top pick, you got to consider McCain a lottery pick because he is someone who has a very similar skill set. The difference between those two is very obviously strength and confidence, which is that Reed is not quite as strong as Jared McCain, and he's also not as confident and in control of his game as Jared McCain. And you're hoping that over the course of this year and then hopefully into next year that he gets better. But the thing that scares me, and Will has brought this up to me before, which is like, he might, and this sounds bad because I like Deuce McBride in the draft, and Deuce McBride, where he was drafted, you're thrilled with getting Deuce McBride in the second round. But if you take Deuce McBride with the third pick in the draft, there's going to be a very different perception of Deuce McBride on your team. And he might just be that kind of role player guard, smaller, can make a defensive impact, good mid-range shooter, can occasionally handle the ball, becomes a good three-point shooter. But, you know, for what we thought Houston was getting, so far the results have not been great. He's still very young. I'm hoping he can turn it around. He's someone I really, really liked in this draft. So, yeah, Reed is probably going to be the most polarizing guy that is selected in any sort of redraft, because at one point after Summer League, we had the Atlanta Hawks leaking that he was a Patrick Mahomes level prospect on their board, and then they didn't take him. Maybe Nico Harrison was inspired by that. He was like, we got to get these guys out of here before their heads get too big, you know? So
I think he meant like Patrick Mahomes Super Bowl 2025. Right?
Yeah, exactly. They saw into the
issue.
future. Yeah. They said, we know that Mahomes is going to be a loser in a few months and that we're not going to want a loser on our team like this.
Yeah. They meant senior because of the poor decision making. That was where they got you there.
Off the court.
Off the court. Yeah.
On the road.
So I guess at 5, I feel great. This was number 3. This guy was number 3 on my board, dropped here. Probably the most boring one to talk about because I think of anyone in the draft, he has been the most exactly what he was billed to be. And I'm going to pick Donovan Clingan here. I don't like, he's just been exactly like the thing coming in is it's like, yeah, you're getting a high caliber starting center. Guy's going to be rock solid on defense, going to rebound the ball, going to do all of these things. He's got a little bit of moving and shaking when it comes to, he's got a little bit of passing juice. He's got some of these other things. And this is what had him in the mix for like number 1 overall pick. And that made everyone a little bit squeamish when they're like, oh, you're going to take like a big as like a traditional center as like your number 1 pick. That's a little icky, like a lot of the things, but and he dropped all the way to 7, I think in part because of that. And I still I'm not sure he's not the best player in this draft. Like he still might. He's not. I don't think he has the upside, and I think this is why we picked a lot of these guys ahead of him, because I still, there's just limited upside when you're that type of a big. I've seen people talk about his touch. I don't really think that's ever going to get there. That seems a little bit like wish casting to me. Maybe he ends up being this guy who can take some like KG like long twos, but I don't really think the range is there. I think he's mostly going to be a pretty standard NBA center, but I think that's fine, because again, he's got a little passing juice. He's a really like off the cuff, has been a pretty good rim protector out of the gate.
Really good his rim protecting numbers are like insane.
Yeah, like as a rookie too. Like you don't understand, like guys. If I'm remembering correctly, his foul rate is not that crazy too, which is another really good indicator. Like
5.8 per 36, not ideal, but I'll tell you in 1 second why you don't care about that. Do you want to guess how many offensive rebounds per 36 Donovan Clingan averages?
I could probably tell you, but do you want to?
Don't look it up.
Okay.
He had like 12 offensive rebounds last night or something like that. It was like a couple of nights ago. He had a ridiculous night. So, did you say per 100 possessions?
Per 36 minutes.
36. 5.5.
6.2 offensive rebounds per 36 minutes. 8.7 defensive rebounds. 15 per 36 rebounds. And 3.4 blocks while having great rim protection numbers. He is very much what exactly we thought he was going to be. Probably the best rebounder it's him or Edey as the best big rebounders in the class.
Yeah.
And then around the rim, blocking shots, protecting the rim. If Portland could get, like, if Scoot would become what we thought Scoot was going to be, or they can get this Sharp becomes better at creating whatever it is, there's potential for Clingan to be number 1 in a redraft in 2 or 3 years from now, because the role player shit's already there. All the stuff we thought would translate. He's huge. He looks big even on an NBA court. Yeah. And he's learned pretty quick so far. Like, once again, the foul rates aren't great, but every rookie center, especially defensively tilted rookie centers, always deal with this. And that's something that the two things that you worry about with Clingan are still not really solved, which is like, what is his offensive role, which I think we'll learn more about, but it might just be like a super version of like a Jakob Poeltl or something. I think we've compared him to a few traditional centers. Maybe even he reaches like a Zubac level. I don't know if he'll ever be quite as offensively skilled as Zubac, but on top of that, the other question with him is like, what is the minute load between the fouls and the conditioning? What level of minutes can he get to? Because he was not conditioned in college, didn't play a ton of minutes. He's not really played that many minutes in the NBA so far. But if those are the things that we're worried about, then who cares? Like these are things that almost every prospect figures out at some point. There's very few outlier guys where that doesn't really impact. And like you said, like to get him with the 7th pick, like, he went 1 pick after Tidjane Saloon. I know I've already dunked on that pick 100 million times, but like, do you think now, knowing what we know about how Charlotte tried to trade Mark Williams, if they would rather have Donovan Clingan or Tidjane Saloon? It was always insane at the time. I mean, I had Clingan like 4 on my board. I think maybe 5. No, I may have had him 6. I think I had him 6, but still, like, if you took him with the 6th pick in the draft, if you took him with any of the top picks of the draft, I think you would be happy with what he's done so far.
Yeah.
It was the whole like, sorry. So no, it was the whole like, make them trade up. They're like, no, we're not even going to put you in that sticky position where you've sort of committed to this guy. No, we're confident in our Frenchman. And, maybe they got sort of double bluffed into thinking that it was going to be Nick Batum 2.0 in Portland, like, 15 years afterwards. But yeah, it's definitely a confusing one. And he's already having like a positive on-off for the Blazers. Like, if you look, they are a better defensive team when he's on the court. They are a slightly better offensive team when he's on the court as well.
That's the offensive rebounding.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's like the ultimate offensive rating, like juicer, isn't it? But it's sort of coming together that in ways that we probably didn't think was possible when you're looking at what Scoot is doing, how Chauncey Billups has turned into a functional NBA coach, and like it's weird. It's coming together, but like you guys have said, he's the one that you could have sort of relied upon at the start of the season, and he's not let anyone down as of yet.
They're a weird team though, because like now they're kind of like they have a lot of really good prospects. They don't have any great prospects, I think we would all say. And then they're also like this. We talked about the importance of this draft for the Toronto Raptors and how if you want to make that mess of a team somehow make sense, you have to hit this pick.
Yeah.
Portland's kind of in a similar situation where like they're probably going to be a little bit too good to get like one of the top 5 picks in this draft. So you got to hope that Mike Schmitz is just dialed in once again. He's got to lock in and get like a star or another guy that just makes this team make more sense outside of that top 5, because they're going Donald Trump mode. They're winning so much that people are getting sick of it.
They can't stop winning.
We can't. You're gonna get sick of winning. Portland Trail Blazers fans might end up sick of winning.
They're sick of winning already. Yeah,
exactly. Because they have this little stretch where now they're like they have a better record than the Sixers, who, I think we're right now we're at the 6th or 7th lottery odds. I think Portland's at like 10 right now. And they're not going to make the play-in in the West because the West is just too deep. So they're kind of stuck in this middle ground where like they got to hope that they hit on the next pick, or else we could be looking at like them kind of getting stuck in between the bad and the great teams.
I'm going to flash forward to June real quick. Cal, turn the TikTok camera on. So Portland finished the season with a better record than the Spurs. Is Wemby overrated? Have we overthought this too much? Like maybe this is the new league. Like superstars don't move the needle that much. You've just got to have a good team. Scoot the right pick. Is that house? Am I crazy? I'm watching this team play together. This is a much better built team. I mean, like, I don't know. I maybe this changes things. I would love that. Bill could be cooking up.
Okay, not saying that's right because that's obviously absurd.
Yeah,
I do think that we've joked for 2 years now about no shitters being more important than ever.
Yeah,
I do think that teams like Portland, teams like the Knicks, teams like the Celtics are the highest, and the Thunder are the highest end of this.
How about the Nets? Kind of.
The Nets,
and
sure.
The Nets are like a great example of this, of having
Jazz
no
2 years ago,
talent, but
where like they overperformed in the first, because they're solid 1 through 7. There's no way to, there's no way that you can overrate top end star talent, because it still ultimately is what wins championships. Even the Celtics had Jason Tatum, who on his worst day is a top 10 player.
Yeah.
Having said that, it does feel like more of those middle of the pack teams. Like Jaren Jackson Jr. is the best player on Memphis, and no one would consider him a top 10 player, and they're the 2 seed. Like they are kind of perfecting this style.
They're saying we're gonna trade John Morant because it's gonna make the team better. Like it's like, all right, like party on. This is I like that, by the way. Small bean drafting team. This is like going the complete opposite way. Like small bean drafting team was. Like, let's fucking go, Memphis. I kind of like that because that's ballsy as shit. Just
like
they did what with Luka? Bet.
I was gonna say there were a million bands that listen to the Velvet Underground. There were a million GMs inspired by Nico Harrison. Just go nihilist mode. Say none of this matters. Trade our 25-year-old star. By the way,
nobody hired Nico Harrison, but every owner that read Nico Harrison's Nike manifesto hired one of the people to be the GM of their team. So.
Both possibly influenced by heroin. Wait, hold on. Are we not putting this together? Who was the singer on the Velvet Underground album?
I don't know.
Her name was Nico.
Oh, Nico. Oh my God. Wait, hold on.
No, I'm dead serious. Her name was Nico. We've unlocked something here. Amazing discovery that we have made. That
Nico
album is
Harrison,
literally on the Velvet Underground by Velvet Underground and Nico.
Nico Harrison has developed a new style of GMing that is going to influence things for years to come. Where you get out, you trade your star on their first contract to get a huge haul of
Genius.
injured players that can't play.
Amazing.
Did she not push to like drop Lou Reed from the band to get like Elvis Presley in the building for one more tour?
And Elvis immediately shit himself on the first day and he's out for the season. That was what happened there.
Elvis is dead on the toilet again.
This is honestly, this might be 12D chess, because if the Mavs get Cooper Flag, is this the greatest heist of all time? Or do they just not have their pick?
No, they have their pick. This is the 1 year they do have their pick. They don't have their pick for like 3 straight years coming up, which is going to be bad. But
unless they get Cooper Flag, unless they jump up in the draft,
can they? I mean, are they missing the playoffs in this scenario?
Yes.
I assume. Yeah, I assume.
I think it's on the table, by the way.
Then once again, my conspiracy tinfoil hat will be coming out if that happens.
Let's go.
I will be going Alex Jones mode. Resident of Texas himself.
Wait, check out what Jake just said. Nico was 6'3".
Oh damn! She should have hooped.
She should have been playing small forward for the Sun, man. What was going on there?
Yeah, seriously.
Girl, the Aces need you. They lost everyone this offseason.
She could be the Sixers play 6'3" guys at the 3 sometimes. She could definitely play for the 6. Eric Gordon was our power forward in a recent game. I think that Nico could definitely slot in there. Amazing. So
an hour in, 5 picks.
All right, we're getting to the 6th pick now.
Okay.
I have 2 completely different archetypes of players, 3 actually that I'm picking from.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna make the boring pick, unfortunately, but there are 2 guys that I think have potential more upside and at least have made an impact on their teams. One who's made a real impact on his team, like right away. But I'm gonna take the guy who's on a winning team. And is probably, I didn't even have him ranked pre-draft. This is the biggest riser. Shout out to Chuck for his guy. I'm going to take Jaylen Wells here with the 6th pick. I mean, once again, boring pick. Just a good NBA player already. Like already starting on a winning team. Does all of the things that was advertised. Crazy range. Good wing who can, occasionally handle the ball. You're not going to be running plays for him or anything, but is capable enough with the ball. Defensively has shown way more in the NBA than he ever really did as a prospect. This is someone that was drafted in the 2nd round. The Grizzlies get away with it again. If you told me that in a redraft, we would be taking potentially 2 Memphis Grizzlies in this lottery redraft, I wouldn't be surprised at all. He's just good. Like he's the archetype of player that everyone is always looking for. Can stay on the court defensively, is a solid defender, wing sized, can shoot threes, is capable enough with the ball. That he's just a perfect 5th starter on a winning team.
Starter. Just an NBA starter, and he's probably going to be an NBA starter in this league for like another 6 to 7 years at least, until, something catches up with him. But like, that I had him 5 on my board for that exact reason.
Yeah, I mean, he killed the Sixers early this year, dude. I was like, what the I mean, I knew he had a hot start, but he has been inarguably one of the 3 or 4 best rookies. And if we're going based on production and archetype, I mean, if you did a redraft today, he would be going ahead of every wing that was taken in the lottery, I think, which is crazy to say.
That's what I was just about to say there. That's our first proper wing off the board. Like you could say Stephon Castle is sort of wing / forward size, but this is our first guy to go. And I think that like this archetype of player is going to become more valuable as we sort of move away from go all the big words here, like heliocentric creators. Like you see what Memphis has done this year where they're sort of spreading the ball out a little bit more. You sort of attack your man. It's open driving lanes. We're not setting picks. And just having a little bit of juice, whereas 5, 6, 7 years ago, don't care, stand in the corner.
Yep.
Now we're looking at something where that's actually got some use. If you can drive at your guy, there might be a space to in this new modern NBA. And like you guys have said, he's actually been really, really like overtasked on the defensive end as well.
They don't have
Marcus Smart,
defenders.
yeah,
I was going to say they traded away Marcus Smart. They don't really have anyone that to throw on wing size guys, and he's done a capable enough job for a rookie who wasn't really drafted for his defense. So, yeah, no. Well, Wells is a good, solid pro already. All right, you're up on the board, Jack.
Yeah. So I'm going to go for our second wing of the night, and I'm going to take a guy that if Sheppard had this guy's confidence, we're talking about, Derek White already, but I'm going to take Matas Buzelis with my next pick.
I thought you were going to say Jacoby Walter.
Okay, make your pitch on Matas Buzelis, because I didn't know what to do with him.
Yeah, I know it's a weird one, but I like the amount of sort of run that he's started to get. He's playing consistently. He's getting shots up night after night. He's had a few big nights here. I think he went 10 for 10 against Miami fairly recently. And I just think that over the next 6 months or so, 12 months, he's going to see the ball in his hands. We've seen the athleticism. We've seen the sort of herky-jerkiness of the game as well. And there's just this small bet on if he can shoot to like a moderate level as a 6'10" guy, grow into his body, there are a lot of tools that he's already got. And I think he's starting to show, one, he's got the confidence, two, he's going to have the ball put in his hands. So I think that we could look back. This is what's the opposite of a short? This is a bet, basically, that in the next 2 to 3 years, he's going to get more run than the rookies that we've got available here, basically.
This is a tools versus production thing, because the flashes that he had in Summer League and in the league so far are definitely intriguing at a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's obvious when you watch him that there is something there. Now, I'm glad that he's on a team like the Bulls, where it's just a completely blank slate, basically, with that team, where they have 45 point guards and no real wing players outside of Patrick Williams, who doesn't show up for half of the games, it seems like, even when he does play. So you have Buzelis in this kind of ball of clay mold right now, where, like, what can we get out of him? Because, like you said, at 6'10", if he can handle the ball a little bit, I think the shooting, like, there's not a big sample of it, but there's been, I watched a game with him, I think it was against the Heat recently, where he went 4 for 4 from 3, I think. And like,
he went 10 for 10 in that game.
10 for 10 from the field. Yeah. The shot looks good. Like, and the shot has never looked bad with him. It just has never gone in. That's been the problem with him, as we talked about him the whole cycle, was like, it doesn't look like a fully broken shot, but if the shot doesn't go in, then he's more of a theoretical shooter. Now, it's gone in enough at the NBA level. Once again, super small sample. And I've only caught him occasionally watching games where I tend to catch him on a good shooting night. But it's at least potential for him to be an average to above average shooter at a minimum. And if that falls into place, then everything falls into place for him. The one thing I still struggle with him is, like, if he has the ball, the passing just needs to be better, because I feel like he gets tunnel vision way too often. I feel like if you're going to be a guy who is an on-ball player, you either need to do one of two things for me to think that you have, like, true upside, which is you either need to get to the basket and the line a lot, or you need to be able to be, like, a good passer. And I don't really think he's shown that much of it in the G League or in the NBA. And the fact that he has not really had these opportunities yet, I would like to see one of those two things go up for me to think that he has, like, starter upside potential.
Yeah. So last 15 games, he's played 20 minutes per night for Chicago. He's got 10.2 shot attempts up per game. 54.7% from the field, only 0.8 turnovers, but only 0.7 assists in that time as well. That's like Dwight Powell. That's Nick Claxton on the nets, kind of. You are just throwing me the ball to sort of dunk it for that sort of ratio. So I completely get what you're saying.
And G League was a mess. G League was a mess, but he didn't have a ton of high assist games. If you watched him play, the decision making was kind of like, he could occasionally make a set pass from, like, but if it was like driving, or if it was like basically anything built around his scoring gravity, he wasn't making, like, high level reads by any means. It was all just like little easy, simple passes. And if you're 6'10", you can handle the ball. That's what makes you have potential star upside. And like, that's the thing that like all of these guys flash from. Even Ron Holland, I think has shown, I know his G League Ignite teammate has shown passing flashes in a way that he hasn't really. But I think that Buzelis, just from a tools, touch, and positional value standpoint, like if he can become a 4 who can dribble, pass, or let's just say dribble, shoot, rebound, defend the floor. Like I think that Ethan in our Discord, who really liked him pre-draft, was like, can he be like a Dean Wade type at the NBA?
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's a good, valuable player. So like, that's the hope if you're Chicago, probably with a little bit more juice on the ball.
I was famously very down on him. I didn't see a lot of the upside. I watching him, he was one of these guys where I watched him in the NBA for like a couple of games, and I'm like, oh, okay. He's fine. Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I a lot of my fears that I had for him coming out are just gone. Like, I don't think I had him, I think 10 on my board, which is very funny because I had him like 26 on my like pre-draft one. Yeah. So now I have him like 10. And it's, he hasn't like wowed me or like overwhelmed me. It's just like, he's gotten a lot of just watching him on an NBA court is just put me at ease about like where his floor is at. And I think that he's going to have a long NBA career. Like, will he be good? I don't know.
Are you saying that the G League Ignite wasn't the best place to sort of evaluate a young prospect, a 6'10", toolsy guy?
I'm so glad it's gone.
Yeah,
it was such a nightmare for those years, being like every time being like, oh, I'm Lucy with the football again with the G League Ignite guys just fucking falling for it every day.
It did correctly tell me that Tyler Smith is a better player than Montez Buzelis. So
Tyler with the next pick.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there you go.
Yeah. Taking Tyler, no. I will never take a buck. So a lot of different ways to go here. A couple of my guys are on the board here. I'm going to take a guy I still had very high on my board. It's very boring. I've had him very high on both boards. However, let's get the Demon in here. Let's take Demon Edey. Let's put Demon Edey on the board. I feel a little boring taking another traditional center like back to back. But again, this is kind of the thing with this draft. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's very funny. I think he and Stephon Castle are like very similar. They're the point guard and center version of the same problem.
High floor, low ceiling type.
Yes, exactly. Like where like Edey has the same thing where I think I have no doubt Edey can be good. I've seen it. I have no doubt Edey can be good in a regular NBA game. He could be an innings eater. Like, he can do this. I am still hesitant about seeing Edey in a playoff situation.
Is he just dead on arrival in the playoffs?
That's the thing, you know, like, because if Edey can play a little bit in the playoffs, this is late for him, you know. But I think what everybody probably correctly assumes is that
we see this cliff coming, which is what we always worried about with him pre-draft.
Yes,
but also we said bad draft, high production player, massive player in general. Like, I mean, like guys his size, if they're bust, you know immediately. Like, it's like, it's almost like, you know, Hashim Thabit couldn't play in the NBA right away.
Yes.
You know with these guys, like, whether they're NBA players or not. Edey at a minimum is already proven that he's an NBA player, and in certain matchups might be a really valuable NBA player.
Great rebounder, huge. I think he's still number one in true shooting percent. He was earlier in the game. Efficient. A lot of the stuff, like, he's still obviously adapting to like pace of game. I think his foul rate is worse than Clingan's. I think his is also pretty bad if I remember correctly. But like, again, rookies, I don't mind that when you're a blocks guy, because that shows that you're not like, you're in position. You know what I'm saying? You're close. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just fucking it up, or you're not used to like the timing quite right. I don't mind high like fucked up foul rates on like younger guys like that. So I think Edey is by far the most productive player. Like, I think the fact that he fell this far shows that all three of us are a little bit concerned about that playoff cliff. But he is, I think, besides Jaylen Wells and like He's been like one of the most productive rookies in the class. It's like him and Castle are one of them. So I think that he's a very good player. I think he's going to be an NBA rotation player for a long time, but just maybe not a playoff rotation. We're going to see this playoffs, and I'm very interested to see. I'm not willing to write it off yet. I think it's possible. I think it's possible that he could stay on the court.
The only thing that I worry about with Edey, so by the way, just very small attempt rate again, but he's made 35% of his threes. Now he's only taken 40. He's made 14. There might be something there. Like and that was one of the things we talked about. Like he was a good longs 2 shooter in college when he had a small sample, decent free throw shooter. And if you're a 7'4", 7'5" guy who could shoot threes, rebound,
nobody's blocking your shit, man.
No.
Yeah,
that's a 10-year career right there. And like maybe the higher end outcomes, we were a little bit drunk on the pre-draft Edey stuff. Sure. I
stand by it.
What I was just going to say was I'm still not counting out that there's a world where Zach Edey makes an all-star team. Yeah, I don't think it's likely, but I also want to, I don't think it's impossible. And once again, the thing that will keep him from that is obviously the defensive stuff. But I'm just saying, if he's only been playing basketball for like 6 years, guys. That's another part of this, is that like Edey's big thing was that he was a baseball player before this, and he became a basketball player like later in high school into college, and has continuously gotten better at every single year. I'm not saying it's impossible. Now, I don't think it's very likely. I think it's more likely he's just like an average to below average starting center. And that because he's already like 22, it's hard for me to see, the crazy high end outcome stuff, but it's not impossible. And I think the fact that the real like philosophical argument here from the redraft here is someone who I consider taking with my last pick. I don't think I'm going to take him with my next pick just because I think it's kind of a boring pick. And I just took a boring pick with Jaylen Wells. But like, I'd probably rather have Yves Missi than Zach Edey for the next 10 years. And because maybe this is just my brain being like, this might just be my brain being like, I know what it takes to succeed at the higher levels. And I've seen Missi, like, once again, still really young, crazy athlete, can do a little bit with the ball, but you don't really want. To me, I think Missi has like Clint Capella 2.0 upside. Yeah. Where like he's just like a run, jump, and dunk center who can do a little bit more with the ball than Capella could, because he's in a different era of the NBA where Capella was told set screen for James Harden and Trae Young and roll to the rim and do nothing else. Missi might be more in the, he can run a dribble handoff and also put the ball on the ground and get to the basket. And then, just fits nicely into a winning team in a way that you don't have to quite build around him as much as Zach Edey, if that makes sense. Like he fits a little bit more seamlessly.
Is the argument for Zach Edey, future All-Star, that he's been done a disservice by this offensive scheme in Memphis, and that if you did just run a ton of pick and roll with him and Ja Morant, have him sort of use that massive catch radius, is he putting up sort of star rookie level offensive numbers? Because it's really weird to have a guy that's 7'4", weighs whatever Zach Edey weighs, and say, oh no, what we really want you to focus on is like vacating the space,
right,
as the guy drives, right? It's a really,
we talked about this earlier in the year,
to get your head around.
It's like the movement system is them implementing that this year is kind of the worst timing for Zach Edey. We're like, if Zach Edey was on the Washington Wizards and we were just like, go cook, like he'd probably be putting up monster stat lines. Now, some of that would be empty calories, but at a minimum, it would be, we would be talking about him in a different way than I think. But like, once again, Missi was a guy that I'm comparing him to here. Missi was a guy that was instantly an impact player in the NBA. Now he's trailed off a little bit over the last whatever time period, but like the first 20-25 games, it was obvious that this guy's going to be a starting level center in the NBA. And most guys in his mold are not good at that. I shouldn't say that. Sometimes you do get like rookie. We've talked about this a little bit. Rookie centers with simplified roles actually tend to produce at higher levels than wings or guards or whatever, like just plug play. But it's not like he was dropped into the perfect situation is my argument. Like, it's not like he was dropped onto Trae Young's team or Luka Doncic's team. He was dropped into a team that is like no one's ever healthy. He was dropped into a team where it's like everyone's kind of for themselves. They don't have they have guys who can handle the ball and create, but they don't have like a superstar level guard creator.
Trae Young, we're good. DeJounte Murray's here. Hold on, wait, no, he's already hurt. Never mind. Unironically, Jose Alvarado's here.
Jose Alvarado.
Unironically.
The best 5'11" guard in the NBA, Jose
That's
Alvarado,
correct.
not Trae Young.
Not Chris Paul. Jose Alvarado clears that fraud.
That's the argument that you could make here. And by the way, we're at the 8th pick in the redraft now. So like now you're starting to talk about like more guys like we're still taking swings with guys like Matas and Edey and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're talking about guys who like have already produced and are clear role player, fifth starter, fringe starter type guys that I think would be okay to take in this range. And I'm going to take another swing.
Okay.
I'm going to go with my guy, Rob with the shifts. Rob Dillingham.
I had no idea what to do with him, so I'm fine. I had him fucking everywhere on my board.
He's actually rose up my board a little bit because I loved Rob. I love the idea of Rob because I love bucket getting guards. I love guys who can create their own space and shoot off the dribble and get downhill and play make for others. And I talked about how much I watched Kentucky last year, and Reed and Rob were very clearly the best two players on a team that was filled with potential NBA players on it last year. And there was such a massive difference when you watch those two. And now he hasn't gotten a ton of opportunities with the Wolves. More of them have come recently, but the flashes with him are very real for sure. I mean, the thing that you would like to see more with Rob, and this is kind of how I felt about Bub Carrington too, where like Bub kind of has the inverse problem where like I'm worried about Bub more inside the arc, and I would like to see Rob shoot a little bit more from outside. I would like to see, because he is one of the thing that I thought that Rob was different than your traditional bucket getting guard archetype guy, was that he felt more not quite this level of like tools as like Maxey or Monk to go with Kentucky guards, because Monk's like a crazy athlete and Maxey is just like probably the fastest player in the NBA, if not top 3 or whatever. But Rob was a guy that was willing to play off the ball in a way that most bucket getting guards are not, especially as one and done freshmen in college. That's the thing that made Reed and Rob such special guard prospects to me, in terms of like they're willing to play winning team basketball in a way that guys in their mold usually aren't. And Rob can move off of the ball. They would set plays for him a lot. He was a really good relocation shooter and got drafted to a team that is pretty good, that I think needs, with Mike Conley aging out right now, they need a Rob Dillingham type to potentially create offense for himself, kind of create offense for others. As Anthony Edwards, that's obviously not his strong suit, but I think playing off of someone like him, and then we'll see what happens with Randall. Obviously that team's kind of a mess overall, and its construction doesn't really quite make a ton of sense, but the dribble pass shoot stuff with him is very real. Defensively, I still have my concerns. And the star higher end outcome stuff might not quite be there, which just makes it hard for me to really get there and figure out what he is at the NBA level. But I think Rob is very clearly like a hyper skilled bucket getting guard who can create for himself and others. And I think that kind of player will always have value. The problem is going to be is if they have dreams of contending, what does his role look like? That's really the one thing that holds me back with him.
Part of what I really liked about Rob at Kentucky and Rob and Reed together was the amount that they could stress a defense without having to get inside the arc. There was a lot of sort of side to side movement, and I think that we've actually seen that with how messy it is in the Timberwolves sort of like front court, where you're often seeing Jalen McDaniels, Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle playing together. it's really, really hard to sort of penetrate and actually get to the paint for both him and Ant. But when they've played together, there's been a lot of, we're going to stand 35 feet away from the hoop and we're going to pass it from left to right, from left to right. And when one of us feels that there's something to attack, we're going to go and attack it. And it's really, really simple, almost like Boston Celtics, Charlotte Hornets offense of, we don't need to risk a turnover. We don't need to do anything fancy, but just our shooting gravity and our driving gravity, we can reduce it down to bare bones and we can still create. And I think it's been impressive how a player that looked like, the guitarist that's going to ruin your song with his 3-minute solo has been able to sort of play with the band so far.
Yeah, I mean, 30% assist rate, averaging 16 points per 36, I think. Not the highest efficiency player. I think the shooting will come along with him. But look, I mean, one of the things that we always complain about with people complain about, I shouldn't say we do. One of the things that people always complain about is like the fact that like Ant he's shooting more than he is getting downhill, getting to the rim or whatever. Because Rob can operate that outside space a little bit more in a way that Conley has as well. You're hoping that he can fit that mold. And and now once again, it was very bold of them to trade those two far out swaps and unprotected picks, knowing what we know now. But at a minimum, I think that he's going to be, what's that?
The asteroid's coming.
Yeah, they do.
Up to 3.7.
Who does Tim Conley know at NASA? Who did it? Ishbia, I expect Ishbia and I expect the Adelsons to be plugged in, which is why they made those trades where they said fuck the far out picks and fuck Luka Doncic in his prime for some reason. I respect that. Who does Conley know? Who's Conley plugged in with? A-Rod. Who knows J-Lo, who knows Ben Affleck,
who is in Armageddon,
who's in Armageddon.
There you go,
and has knowledge of the situation. So that's a little game of telephone going on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's 6 degrees of Bruce Willis instead of Kevin Bacon. All right, so I just picked Rob Dillingham back up to Jack with the 10th pick. We'll see how far we can get here.
Yeah, I'm going to take the guy that you mentioned in conjunction with Rob Dillingham. I'm going to take Bub Carrington.
Okay.
Really high
Jack's
on Bub.
Snaked me.
All right, hold on. Before you continue here,
my next one I was going to
Before you continue here, we are going to New Orleans next month, so someone has to take Missy soon because otherwise we're not going to be allowed in to the city. So I just want to throw this out there. Make your case for Bub Carrington.
Yeah, so Bub is still like 19 and he's sporting a really, really positive assist to turnover ratio. I think it's almost like 2.5 to 1. He looks like an NBA player already at this age. He's got the size tools. He's got the sort of movement patterns to where when he can get to the mid range and pull up, it looks sweet. I like that he's been willing to take threes, even if it's sort of been limited. He's shooting well from the free throw line. I think that this guy, while he really, really struggles to get inside the arc and while he really struggles to get to the paint, give it 2 years, give it 3 years, let, someone from Washington, let RFK get his hands on him, make him healthy again.
Yep.
And
the FDA is holding back Bub Carrington.
Bub Carrington.
I've been saying this.
He needs beef tallow. There's too many seed oils, and it's hurting Bub's at-rim finishing numbers.
Bird flu Bub is going to be a problem.
I just think that if the physicals come around, he's shown the mental side of the game and he's shown the skill side of the game to where it could actually be like a slight, not like star bet, but if he turns into a better player than Emmanuel quickly in 6 years, 7 years, I don't know how shocked I'd be because I really like him and I really like how he doesn't look too out of place at this age on an NBA court.
From the first time Sam heard Bub Carrington's name, he said, that guy is going to be a fucking star.
Yeah, that guy's a fucking problem. Carlton Carrington. You don't even need the Bub. He's got 2 awesome names. That's fucking unreal. This is how I'm scouting the NFL draft this year. Yeah. You're telling me Cam Ward isn't going to be a Pro Bowler quarterback in the NFL? Yeah. That guy has literally got a quarterback's name, Cam Ward. Come on. Easy.
That
No,
guy is
Bub-
making 5 Pro Bowls. I'm telling you. I don't know anything about him other than that, but that's all I
think
need.
now I understand I'm doing a little bit of flirting and harassment here because I've been very nasty to Cade Cunningham in the past. But like, I think that he's doing all of this. Like I said, obviously his advanced stats are garbage right now. Very similar to how Cade's were his rookie year. But I think that if you just watch the Wizards, it's very clear, as Jack said, that he is an NBA player. I think that there is a lot of understanding of playmaking. I think of him, I think he has like the upside of like small Chris Middleton. I think would be like what I would say is kind of where I'm leaning with him. And I like I think he could be like a good defender. I think he's going to be one of these guys who's going to really be maximized by playing with more talented players too.
Yeah.
Like he does not, I don't think he's a guy who's necessarily like a cooker. And I really like his fit at like higher levels in like playoff thing. I think he's going to be a really valuable player on playoff teams. If the Wizards don't break him and break his brain at some point, but I think the Wizards are kind of on a trajectory to be like competent, like pretty quickly, like as soon as next year. And I think that's really going to benefit Bub. And I'm all in on Bub. I think the shooting is there. I think the defense, all the stuff that he's bad at, I think is going to improve, like outside of rebounding. And it's like, who fucking cares with that? So
obviously, I love Bub was one of my upside star bets in the draft. I loved him. Yep. I have a hard time getting there with the inside the arc stuff. That is my thing that holds me back from thinking that he can reach star level. Because it was a problem in college. It's been a problem in the NBA. Now, as he gets stronger and he gets into, strength and conditioning stuff, and I think it will get better. The assist turnover ratio is held strong. The touch indicators have held strong in the NBA. None of these things have changed. He's basically, it's kind of similar to the Clingan thing where he's what we thought he was going to be as a rookie in the NBA. The thing that worries me the most about Bub Carrington is the scoring inside, which we talked about, but also just like he gets to the free throw line once per 36 minutes. That is like insanely low for a guard. That's like almost unfathomably low. And that's what even holds me back from being like, he's a guaranteed bet to be a starter level player. Now, could he be a good bench guard? Could he fit as a third guard on teams? Yes. I think that a likely outcome is something between that and what you were saying with like an Emmanuel Quickly type or whatever. But he's still very young. And I mean, look, he's got a lot of things going for him. He's got swag. He's got the name. Rookie guards usually suck, especially one and dones. And he's at least shown enough of the dribble pass shoot stuff that he's a solid bet to make on some upside type shit. So yeah, I love Bub. Yeah.
Carlton Carrington III.
Amazing.
There's no way he could fail. There's no way he could fail, really.
Amazing.
That's such a baller name.
I'm writing his Hall of Fame speech right now. Just booking it in.
Yeah, no, write that. Put that in the cloud, man. That's going to be. We'll put that in the time capsule for after the asteroid hits, because I'm sure he'll still be hooping afterwards.
This is for you, Jack. Someone said that before the draft, I don't know if you heard this podcast we did, but someone said when we were doing like the name test, they said that Rob Dillingham sounds like a English soccer player from like a B squad.
Yes.
And I was unfortunately Rob Dillingham is not like a all-star level NBA player.
He played for Wolves back when they were down at the championship. Yeah. Yeah.
The other Wolves?
The other Wolves, yeah. Wolverhampton.
Yes. Streets will never forget compilations, banged in 8 goals in 30 starts. That
of course. Yeah. Amazing. And then he tweeted, "I'm a fix Wolves."
Yeah. Speaking of which, another guy who has one of those names, Alex Sarr. He that's a guy who started in goal for my for my Puddleford United. That was Puddleford United had a crazy streak. I'm not actually taking Alex Sarr. I just wanted to
Alex Sarr from Brixtonbury.
Yeah.
All right.
I probably should take Yves Missi here. Fuck, that's so boring though.
Take it whoever you want. I'm taking Yves Missi with the next pick just to speed up the process. I gave my spiel on him.
You know what? I'm taking fucking Rod Holland. Let's go. Give me
I
a Ron Holland.
I love me Ron Holland.
I'm Ron Holland pilled. I have you. This is your guy. This is you and Chuck's guy. I was much more skeptical of Ron than you guys. I feel like I was a little bit of a Ron Holland centrist coming into the draft. I've watched a lot of Detroit. Like, look, the shooting is still not good, okay, and that's why he's down here. I've been pretty encouraged with pretty much everything else about Ron Holland's game. Like, I honestly think he's been better than I expected at pretty much everything else. I think he's been a great rebounder. The passing is not always the best, but I do kind of like how he
in the
sees
open
the
court
floor.
he can pass.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, I like how he sees the floor, and I think that he's got like the right instincts for that. And I do think that that's something he's going to get better at as he practices. He's a great athlete. He's got a lot of these things. I mean, honestly, my biggest problem with Ron Holland is I still don't totally love the fit, like with like him and Sarr Thompson. I love both of those guys, and they're on the same fucking team, and they're like,
what happens when Malik
similar
Beasley
players.
isn't shooting like Steph Curry? Is the question mark for me?
Exactly.
Detroit.
And just like, you know, Jaden Ivey, like obviously Jaden Ivey getting hurts. I think one of those guys has to go, like a Sarr Thompson for like of Sarr Thompson and Ron Holland for like them both to develop the way that they need to. And I still think Ron, more likely than not, will kind of be like a journeyman style wing who's like on a lot of teams, you know, kind of good, not great. Like he probably averages out as like kind of like a Jay Crowder type of guy. Even though I know Jay Crowder was a pretty good shooter. Like I think he was a career like 34% 3-point shooter, which is like fine. And if you could tell me Ron would get there, that would probably be great for his long-term prospects. He's got, speaking of guys who still have some star upside, this is where like in the draft, I'm willing to bet on guys like that. Like to separate it from like Yves Missi, like Yves Missi is just going to be like a great, perfect starter. We did the whole spiel earlier. I think Clint Capella 2.0. I love what you said there, Trill. Like he's going to be a guy who's making $30 million in the NBA for like a long career, going to make a lot of money. Ron Holland, while not likely, still does have some of that star upside. And I'm willing to take that bet on him. The shooting, there's pretty much no indicators that the shooting is ever going to get better, which is why he's way down here. But
I think Ron Holland is Derek Jones Jr. That's my thing. Like if you want to make like a comp to an NBA player, like now is he as athletic as Derek Jones Jr.? Probably not, but like is going to be a solid all around wing who can run the floor, will make the right plays, and is just a valuable archetype of player. Like I think that Ron Holland will always hang around. Now the swing skill with him is the shooting. It always has been, and it always will be. Yeah. But that's also the swing skill for like 90% of these guys we've talked about. Like, there's very few guys who can get away with not being able to shoot. Ron is not even in that bucket. Like, he's a good player and has impacted Detroit pretty instantly. But long term, I would like to see him as like a potential. Like I said, the reason why I had him high on my board was I was like, even if you miss, I think that he's just too skilled and talented and long to fail when teams are always looking for wings to take cracks on. Sometimes these guys take until they're 25. That's the fear if you're Detroit, is that like he just never really develops and then he goes to another team and finds a role. Because, like, keep in mind, Derek Jones Jr. is on his 5th team. Like, he played for Miami, Portland, Chicago, Dallas, and now the Clippers. That could be a potential outcome, like you said earlier. But at a minimum, I think he's an NBA-level athlete who has shown flashes at both the G League and the NBA. And wings always take forever to develop anyway. So I'm taking Yves Missi with the next pick. I'm surprised that he lasted this long. So Jack, you're up on the board with the 13th pick. I've already talked about Missi. So
yeah, I'll get us moved on again with one of the more boring picks because I want to get to my like fun guys at the back end. I will take the first overall pick, Zaccharie Risacher here.
We haven't taken either of the top 2 guys.
Or Sarr, yeah.
Okay,
nice and like NBA Twitterish.
Risacher is about in the range I thought he would go in a redraft. I had him 9 on my board. Every time we ever say anything bad about Risacher, he instantly balls out the next game. So I'm going to let you say a few nice things about him, because I'm not even joking. Last episode, when I jokingly called him French Kevin Knox, he scored 30 points in the next game on like great efficiency. And once again, I've said before, I've said it again, I see the vision with Risacher. I would just like some production, because he hasn't really had production at either the French Pro League or the NBA League on a consistent enough basis for me to see the higher end outcomes for him. But he's a big wing who can theoretically create, shoot, decent feel, and is solid defensively.
Is a fifth starter, I think. And there've been flashes in his rookie season. Again, we say wings take forever to develop. This guy's still 19. He's played proper NBA minutes this year. He has had really, really good games, like you say, where he absolutely balls out, and then he has other games where he just sort of fades into obscurity. But his like lowest skill is like a 5 out of 10. He can move the ball some. He can finish it. I mean, finishing at the rim is probably the biggest question. He can shoot. He can defend on the perimeter. Nothing is going to be catastrophic, which is such a nice thing to say about an NBA player that's taken first in the draft. But just as a bet of like, if you just had video game progression on, where all the attributes go up by like 2 or 3 each season, bang, we're looking at a megastar in like 6 years' time, because the base level is there. It's just at this point, why not take someone safe with the dimensions, with the willingness to shoot? And then, like I said, I'll take the fun guys a bit later.
Is there a world where he's Mikal Bridges?
Ooh.
It's hard for me because I'm just trying to think of like the high, because Mikal was like a really, really good athlete. I think that was the thing that usually separated him from, because when he got to Nova, I have a buddy who knows someone who worked at Nova during the time, and people were like, the thing is that he wasn't even a shooter when he was Risacher's age. He was just an athlete, like, and they locked him in a gym and they said, don't come out until you could shoot, basically. And he came out a great shooter. I'm trying to think of like higher end outcomes for him, because once again, I think he's more of a Harrison Barnes, maybe a healthy. Someone said this on Twitter earlier. Maybe a healthy Otto Porter Jr. If we can talk about like higher end outcomes for him. What do you think is like the best case scenario for him?
DeAndre Hunter.
Funny enough, they just traded DeAndre Hunter. So don't give him a second contract. Trade him when he has value on that rookie deal, and you're cooking. That's interesting. Yeah, DeAndre Hunter's DeAndre Hunter with better feel, but not quite the shooter.
Maybe. Yeah, or like we'll see how the body develops. I feel like for a lot of these guys that come in as freshmen, it's you need to see what they look like when they've been locked in the gym for 6 months, and like when they come back for their second season. I wonder if we sort of get past this idea of second season slump with, hey, look, they've eaten, they've had the NBA diet for 12 months. We'll sort of see what happens there. But yeah,
I probably
for a first overall pick,
because of the shooting, long, slim, like that was the idea that came into my head. But Bridges is probably an underrated like outlier development guy too.
He's got the wingspan and he's got the mid-range game as well, right? Yeah. Like that's the Mikal thing. Yeah. And Mikal has suddenly become like one of the most aggressive looking shooters in the league, where if he catches the ball in the corner, it doesn't matter if it's like by his ankles, it's going up. He's sort of giving me Rip Hamilton vibes these days.
By the way, I said this in the preseason and I got slandered for it a little bit, but I'm reclaiming, because this is all 2025 is all about redemption. The Eagles got redemption in the Super Bowl. I'm getting redemption on everyone who said that Mikal Bridges' shot was broken. He's been the best corner 3-point shooter in the NBA this year. I'm telling you, when people get their shot fixed, it was Chet and Mikal Bridges in the preseason. And I was like, it only matters if you're on the Sixers, because we try to change guys' shots because they're already broken. Like it's the chicken and the egg thing where people go, oh, well, they changed his shot. Why would they change his shot? And I go, well, if you're changing a shot, it probably means he's a bad shooter. And if they're a good shooter, they'll either return to their original mechanics or they'll figure out a way to make this new shot form work. And 99 times out of 100, it doesn't actually affect their long-term outcomes as shooters. That one time, it happens to be guys that play on the Sixers. So
I did this super nerdy podcast with Dave Love, who's like an NBA shooting coach. You might have seen him like around the community, but the idea of sort of just having swing thoughts in your head, like I'm going out and I'm shooting over the next 10 games and I'm focusing on X, and it's the one thing that I'm going to focus on. And like when we watched his debut against the Celtics, you could see like the release point was insanely high,
Yep.
and there was something up. And for a guy that has seen the ball go in so many times, I think sometimes they might say, hey, it's an 82 game season. It's always an 82 game season for Mikal Bridges. Let's really think about this to start the season, as opposed to try and implement it 30, 40 games in sort of regions where it was really, really drastic. But yeah, nothing more to say on old Zaccharie. We'll see how it pans out.
Yep. Sam, you're up.
Let's go a little crazy here. No, not yet. We'll stay safe for now. But next time I'm going to be. Let's get Filipowski off the board.
Nice.
Let's bring Kyle Filipowski in here. He's
exactly where I had him on my board pre-draft, by the way. 14.
14. Yep. I think he is. Like I think he's. I don't want to call him the steal of the draft, but I think he's like one of the guys who slid, who clearly should have gone like a little higher. And I think
his girlfriend would call him the steal of the draft.
Yeah, she was certainly doing some stealing, cradle stealing, folks. Anyway, but I think what happened here with like Filipowski is you go and you look at his stuff, he's kind of sneaky because you go look at his stuff and he's not like great at anything, but then you go through his stats and he's like also not bad at like pretty much anything except block rate, which again is not ideal if you have a center who's got like it's like he's averaging I think like 0.1 blocks per game, which is not exactly what you want in your center, but everything else is really good. Pretty strong 3-point attempt rate for the class. One of the top rebound rates besides like Missi Ware and Edey. He's got like the number one. He's a good rebounder. One of the better shooters in the class. I think his true shooting percentage is like 58% on the year, which is really good for a guy who takes threes the way that he does. I think the assist numbers are pretty strong, especially for a center. Like he's a very like jack of all trades guy. I keep trying to think of someone who's not Kelly Olynyk where I can make
that was our comp for him pre-draft. The comp that flopped from the Discord who liked him was Naz Reid.
Yeah,
that was like an outcry. Although I think it wasn't a 1-for-1 comp. He was just saying like a generally skilled offensive big who can shoot and space the floor. And like I think Filipowski showed a little bit more defensively in college.
Yes.
I haven't really watched him a ton defensively. The only game that I caught of him recently, unfortunately, he fouled out. It was not a great defensive game for him. He had a lot of bad fouls. Norm Powell just had him in fucking hell during that game. But Norm Powell does that a lot. He's like kind of a demon when it comes to targeting bigs and driving and getting them in foul trouble.
For sure.
The thing that is really impressive to me about Filipowski, he shoots 62% from two. Like that's for a rookie big. Now, once again, this is not just a lob catching, like everything simplified for him. Like he runs offense sometimes. Like they were giving him the ball the other night. Like he's running from the elbow. He can create for himself a little bit. Like he showed this in college. He showed this in the pros. Like Filipowski is a pro. And like, that is why I had him at the end of my lottery. Now defensively, it's going to be really hard for him to reach starter levels, I think, in the NBA as a center. But, like, I think that he's very clearly, like, a solid to good bench big.
Yeah.
They're a very clear case of, like, how many 4.5s do you need to make a 5? Where, you know, unless they're playing Kessler, it's, we're going to have Taylor Hendricks, we're going to have Larry Markin, we're going to have Kyle Filipowski. And does that democratic rim protection sort of average out in the end where no one is, like, a nightmare to have under the rim? But, I mean, like, the swing skill is the shooting, isn't it? If that jump shot can become soaking wet, then we really might have a player on our hands.
I was like, wow, he really hit the soaking hard. There we go. All right.
It took me a second too.
Yeah,
I was like, God damn, all right.
Yeah.
young adult author over here really hitting the. I got it. Then I got it. Then it sunk.
He's the
and
one
it's
who needs. I'd say he's the one who needs to be reading Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah.
Also Mormon author, by the way.
Okay. So wait, Sam just went. Am I up now?
No,
I think so, True.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, because Risacher. All right, then once again, I have to take him because I had him a little bit higher on my board. I'm gonna take Sarr here.
I think this is the right spot for him. He was next on my board.
I don't think his offense is good.
No.
I think I'm drafting him based on the defense, and for the second straight year, the flashes on offense. I had him 2 on my board, 1 on my board at one point. By draft time came around, I dropped him to like 5 or 6 because every time I watched him, I was like, man, the offense is just, if he can't shoot, what is he offensively? He's kind of jack of all trades, master of none, but isn't even particularly good at a few of those things. Like it's what you just said about Filipowski, but like,
yeah,
nothing really to glom onto offensively. Having said that, he's had stretches where he's looked competent offensively. He was always going to be a long-term guy. If you took him and you thought he was going to be good as a rookie, that's on you. Like he was always going to be someone that needed to get drafted to a good team that develops players, which the Wizards have never proven in their history that they can do, but we're hoping that this is a new leaf with them. I'm drafting him based on he's a big who can handle the ball. He's a big who can pass a little bit, and he's a big who can defend. He can defend. Like he can switch defend. Yes. He's a good shot blocker. Like those things are there. It's everything else that I'm worried about with him. The rebounding, if he's not like a true, 4 because of the shooting. Where does he fit positionally? This is all stuff that Sam Vecini talked about pre-draft with him, where it was just like, there's a lot of things to like about him, and there are a lot of huge red flags that would be, if you look at the tradition of the guys who tend to be busts at the top of the draft, Sarr fits a lot of the profile. But you can't fully give up on him because the 1 out of every 5 games where he looks good, you're like, all right, I see it. Like, yeah. I see what the vision is. You just hope that isn't fully just tied to, like, can he shoot? Because I don't know if that's a long-term outcome for him.
I've watched a lot of Wizards this year. I was famously pretty out on Sarr before the draft.
Until the end, and then you moved him up.
Well,
we had him at the same spot on our board by the end, which is
true.
funny.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Well, I let Maxwell talk me into it. Maxwell convinced me. He's such a good orator. Yep. When we had him on, I was like, yeah, you know what, fine. But I've fallen for it. I fall for it again. Award might be on my chest when it comes to Sarr, because God, when he looks good, I'm like, okay, hold on. Like he's like, because the defense, he'll have like 3 or 4 wow defensive plays a game, and like what separates his good games is it's like, does he like know what he, because when he plays within his role, he's fucking awesome. It's when he's like deciding that he's Klay Thompson that it like gets out of hand. Like he starts trying to like do too much. He starts like trying to jack up threes, and it's like all a mess. I don't think he's ever going to be able to shoot, but he's got enough feel, which is like the weird thing that he's weird. He's kind of a low IQ but high feel player, which I don't think I've ever seen before. Like,
I think that speaks on like what he thinks, what they thought he was going to be, and what he thinks he is as a player. And like that was always, honestly, if I were Atlanta, like him being like, I don't want to get drafted to Atlanta, like that's kind of wild to me, considering like to be the first pick in the draft, to go to a team where like you'd clearly have a more of a defined offensive role. And once again, now maybe that doesn't fit because they just don't have enough shooting, especially now that they've traded away DeAndre Hunter. They really don't have a lot of shooting. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, man. Like the thing with Sarr is like once again, the flashes are great. But the consistency is just like, as good as the good games are, man, the bad games are really bad. Like he still regularly has nights where he's trying to take over, and is just taking too many errant shots, is like not efficient enough even inside for a guy his size. It really, to me, it just comes down to like, I think he has to be a good 3-point shooter. in order to be like even a starter level NBA player, or it's just not going to happen for him.
It kind of comes back to like the star space and big conversation that we had, and I'm not implying that he's going to be that, but he was almost right in saying like, I'm not a 5, I want to play the 4, because he's not amazing at the stuff that a 5 needs to do.
Exactly.
He's not your typical screen and roll guy. He doesn't sort of like have the feel and the pick and roll of when to go, the catch radius, etc., etc. So it's almost like you need to sell him as, can you beat our star defensive big who goes and spaces in the corner? Like we said, he's going to need to be able to shoot, and maybe there's something there that works. I'm massively high on Bilal, so I think it's going to work out in some way. And even if Sarr doesn't turn out to be this guy, I'm sure Koulibaly and whoever they get in 25 will sort of put him in a good spot. And Bob.
All right, you're up next now.
Yes, this is my first real swing. I say that this is my first real swing for someone that's barely played this year. I'm going to take Jaylen Tyson next.
I love Jaylen Tyson. I was very high on him pre-draft, and he has not gotten a lot of opportunity, but he looked awesome in Summer League.
And he plays for Cleveland. Why is he going to get a lot of opportunity on a rotation that was going like 11 players deep with veterans that was off to like a ridiculous start?
I was going to say, Ty Jerome turned into fucking Chris Paul. So you can't, there was never going to be a role for him on that team. So
I'm happy they've kept him. He's shooting well from 3 in like very limited sample size. He's a real plus rebounder for his position. He's another like Josh Hart variant a little bit, where if you squint, maybe that's what you can see, where you don't want him initiating pick and roll or anything, but you want him attacking closeouts. You want him spacing, and you want him sort of being a nuisance in the dunk spot. So he's my next guy, and I feel like there was definitely someone of a higher profile to take and someone that's had a much better rookie season, but I'd just rather bet on the wing-sized guy here.
Wing-sized guy, dribble, pass, shoot, probably a 2-3 in the NBA, really good rebounder. Defensively, I don't love him, but I think that he's good enough at everything else. I think Josh Hart is a great kind of comparison for him, to be honest. I think he's probably closer to what Josh Hart is than even a guy like Castle, who we discussed earlier. And I mean, there were times at Summer League, I swear, I know once again, Summer League, college, it's all doesn't translate, and I'm not expecting it to translate. But if you squinted at Summer League, there's a little bit of Jimmy Butler in his game where I was just like, damn, this reminds me of young Jimmy, before he was a star. Now maybe he could just be what Jimmy could have been if he didn't have this insane work ethic and outlier. And he's not the athlete Jimmy is by any means. Jimmy was he's a crazy athlete. Tyson is not that, but as a role player, I think that he could have a really nice long career and maybe even reach starter level status. But yeah, no, I like Jaylen Tyson a lot. All right, Sam, you're up. Last few picks. Oh, you're muted.
Chad is reminding me that we forgot about Topic. Oops.
Yeah,
that's your guy. So
that's my guy. Yeah, I would have taken him significantly higher than this.
Okay, so you want to take him here?
No. I want to, because there's nothing to talk about.
I was going to say, let's just leave him off. I feel
let's just leave him off for injury. Yeah, we'll come back in this one. I'm going So there's 2 picks. There's the ultimate calculator rat pick and the non-calculator rat pick. I'm going to go with my heart. Well, you want me to be the rat? I have not really watched this guy play. Jameson Battle has come up on a shitload of fucking when you run the numbers. I was gonna say I'm just saying. I looked at the things. I'm not picking him. I didn't want to pick him there, but I just wanted to shout out that
he killed the Sixers earlier this year, and I had never heard of him before. And he got a real contract, so he might be a guy.
I was gonna say he's 37. No, he's 26 or something. He's really old for a rookie, I think. But I just was surprised how high he was on fucking every rookie leaderboard thing. But my real guy, Keshon George, worst player in this class according to advanced analytics. Everything is dog shit. Under 50% true shooting. Really bad. I don't give a fuck. I watch all those Wizards games. That's my guy. I think he's going to be a real NBA wing eventually. He looks like he belongs. He's fucking defending Jason Tatum in games, and he's getting cooked, but no worse than fucking DeAndre Hunter does or any of these other wings. So I don't know. I'm very I'm very interested in Keshon George, and even though there's literally no evidence statistically that he's going to be a good NBA player, I believe in him. So
there are a few guys that have had real production that we haven't taken yet. I mean, I guess George plays a lot of minutes. So I think we talked about like him as like a potential like bench wing type. He was not someone I was high on in the draft, but I also admittedly have not watched him a ton this year. I mean, he is a rotation player for the Wizards. I can't really say much more, but I there are like 3 guys that we haven't taken that have been like rotation players on like decent to good teams.
I mean, if I was being real, I would have probably taken Tristan De Silva here, but like,
I mean, you didn't even name the person I was thinking. Like,
oh, well, you take it.
I mean, Ryan Dunn was like amazing to start this season. I know that he's trailed off a little bit, but if we're talking about like defensive wings who like could be something offensively, like I'm not going to take him here to be clear. I'm taking someone that I actually think has probably fell way too far. I'm going to take Ajay Mitchell from the Oklahoma City Thunder. I had a first round grade on him in the draft, and he's been way better than my expectations. I actually think that like there's an argument for him that he could be like a potential lottery redraft guy. Like I know he hasn't gotten a ton of opportunity. He was on a 2-way to start this season, but he's a guy. And once again, I've talked about him before on the podcast. This OKC team, like they have a lot of really good players. They have a lot of really like specifically role players like Cason Wallace, Lou Dort, Alex Caruso are defensively tilted guards that can stay on the court offensively that have some ability on that end. Ajay Mitchell is like kind of the opposite in terms of like he brings a different element to this OKC team when he is healthy and he actually plays. Now, he's only played 16 minutes a game in 34 games so far this year, but he's shooting 50% from the field, 43% from 3, and 84% from the line. He's one of the most effective. When I talked about like the driving being like starter upside shit, he's the 3rd best driver in this class behind Jared McCain and Steph Castle in terms of volume of drives per game. His drives per 36, like if you were to like stretch it out in a way that you can't really do it with a lot of these other guys in the class, like he shoots 58% on drives. He is like a hyper effective driver. He can get buckets. He's a pretty decent passer. The one thing I would like to see from him is I would like to see his 3-point volume go up because he's always been a decent 3-point shooter, but he's always been on the ball a lot in college and in the NBA. So like he doesn't really get the volume quite that like a lot of these spot up shooter guys do, but he's shown the indicators. And I honestly am like, I kind of think that OKC might have got the steal of the draft with Ajay Mitchell in the 2nd round. Like him or Jaylen Wells are probably the 2 best 2nd rounders that we've talked about so far. So
it's a shame he doesn't play more. It's
well, he didn't have an NBA contract until like 2 weeks ago. Now he has an NBA contract. He reached I think he was reaching his limit with 2-way games, if I remember correctly.
He got injured as well, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
He got hurt right before he signed the contract, but after the deadline, he got a real deal, and he will seemingly play more.
Well, I was going to say that there's like no way for them to have made more minutes for him. You would have had to like, I don't know, maybe trade some of the guys ahead of him. And how would you have made a trade like that happen? A consolidation trade. You didn't have any draft capital.
Yeah.
You had no.
The team with the greatest net rating of all time should make trades. I agree.
Yes.
But the thing is, they looked and they said, do you know what? Our J-Dub-led bench lineups aren't quite doing it. Do you know who's going to fix it? The 38th pick in the draft. And he did.
That's right.
Like you said, he brought the real driving punch, right? And it's just a really pitiful plus 8.77 net rating when he's been on the court for the OKC.
The problem with OKC is that everyone is good when they're on the court because they don't have like there's no bad players in there. Like I shouldn't say that. They do have when they're injured, they play like other Jalen Williams, and there are like fringe guys that probably aren't like if you think about like the best teams in the NBA, but they win all of their minutes all the time. So
well. As Jack said, the swing happens when Jalen Williams, he took over for Jalen Williams. So I'm just
for J-Dub. Okay, so what's your angle here? That they should trade J-Dub?
Yes.
They should trade their third best player, who's having a breakout season at age 23.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Luka,
You're like, whatever. It can. This argument.
Player. You're gonna get a better player back.
This argument can be anything you want it to be, as long as it's anti-OKC.
It's not anti-OKC. They should be winning the title instead of winning the regular season standings.
Siri, set a reminder for June 15th. Go back and clip.
That's way past round 2.
Yeah. That was good. It actually literally did set a reminder for June 15th.
Let's go.
In my thing to go back.
Let's go.
It literally just says go back and clip this.
An Oklahoma City title, dude, is just going to be like, I am going to, my Twitter's going to be unusable. The quote tweets, it's going to be like in the Community episode with the paintball one where Troy rounds the corner and just gets fucking like owned. Like that's going to be me. Just going down to the ball. I'm going to be like the guy in Akira at the beginning of the movie who the cops blow away. That's going to be me with the quote tweets.
Can't wait. It's gonna be very much. There's this one guy I know. Sorry, once again, you're gonna have to hear about the Eagles. They're the only thing that's good in my life. It's like there's this guy on Twitter called Chiefs Receipts, where he basically just clips everything anyone has ever said bad about the Chiefs, and then like victory laps it. Which of course he's had a ton of victory laps. The Chiefs have been the best team in the NFL for the last 5 years, so it's he has a lot of opportunities and moments. And he kept popping up on my timeline before the Super Bowl. And I was like, all right, I don't want to I don't want this guy on my feed. So I muted him. And then I went back after the Super Bowl and he deleted all of the posts that he was going to victory lap after the Super Bowl. There was one from an NFL writer that predicted Patrick Mahomes would have the worst game of his career in the Super Bowl. And I was like, that guy got it literally exactly right.
Yeah.
And he deleted that tweet afterwards. I was like,
Howard,
you can't be a receipts guy and then delete your post.
Delete your shit. No, you've got to get fucking owned. Yeah, you got to get owned. Like Sam Presti owned me with the Jazz. My take that the Jazz would be good before the Thunder.
Yeah,
like that. I'm owned forever.
I still have a tweet, and people will go dig this up because they dig it up every few months, and also they're going to hear this on the podcast and make fun of me. Yeah. I had a tweet when I was emotional from the night of the 2020 draft where I said that Jalen Hurts was the worst pick since Tim Tebow. So if you want to go find that and make me look like an idiot. And then, by the way, I have the next day I'm posting clips of Jalen Hurts throwing like ropes to CeeDee Lamb and completely talking myself into the pick. But I had a moment of vulnerability and weakness where I was so mad that I hated the Rager pick in the first round, and then they took Jalen Hurts, and I was like, this is the worst draft of all time. Every other pick in that draft missed except for Jalen Hurts. I'm just, again, this is our Eagles-Celtics corollary again, because there's literally a fucking video from Sam Packard. I'll retweet it and I'll put it on the timeline for everyone. It's me. I was with Sam Packard fucking in New York watching the draft, and he recorded my reaction to the Jason Tatum pick. And I do the fucking surrender cobra. I'm wearing a jersey it's a Ray Allen jersey that I've taped across over the back, and I've written on it Monk, I guess. You were right. Malik Monk is a star. So I liked Malik Monk. I still love Malik Monk. I was going to say, I thought he was good. He's probably one of the 10 best players from that draft. I mean, it was a pretty good draft. But yeah, look in the comments right now. Someone sent the tweet. Yeah, it's Bill got it. That's crazy. Yep, man. It's almost word for word what I said. So it's okay. Complaining about a second round pick is spoiled fan shit. I generally agree. You're right. And I was being a little bit of a baby. I was still an Eagles doomer back then. But on top of that, to take a quarterback in the second round when your team is coming off of a not great, we lost in the first round. That team was not good the year before. They were terrible the next year. That team had so many holes. They've rebuilt the team like the next 2 to 3 years after that to make it as good as it is. But yeah, my coldest take by far of any take I've ever had. I was just mad and upset. But anyway. Yeah. Anyway, am I up or are you up? No, I just took Ajay Mitchell. You're up, Jack.
Trill, final pick of the draft. For me, I'm going to take your guy that you loved pre-draft. He has missed most of the season so far with a bad injury, and he's come back and he has not shot it well. But Devin Carter, you are going at pick 21. Who picked 21? Can't remember,
Pick
but
19, right? Are we at 21?
are
or
we at
19?
19?
I don't know. Maybe
no,
I
so
missed
he
one.
replaces Jacoby Walter, right?
Yeah.
Sam's
There you
guy.
go. It was close. It was a toss-up between those two for me. But
I probably should have taken him before Keshon. It's fine.
yeah, not
Devin
much
Carter
to say.
has not been great, but he was good in the G League in the 3 games he played or whatever, 2 games he played there. Loved him in college. But yeah, he's coming off an injury, has not really produced. I once again, I loved him pre-draft. He was one of my top 3 guys in this draft. I'm hoping that this is just a blip on the radar and that he's back next year and looking.
And it's nice since they've traded De'Aaron Fox, they've really cleared space for him to put. Oh no, not quite.
Right. They got Zach LaVine.
Still behind that.
Another guard.
Still behind Malik Monk, behind Keon Ellis. DeMar DeRozan's going to handle the ball, so it's going to have to be. He's going to have to force his way there. But like when you look at the G League numbers, and I think he had like 10 rebounds per game, nearly 30 points, 6 assists. It's just someone that's physically dominant at that level. So if he can bring that 15 minutes a night and fix the shot, then you're going to have a positive impact player. It's just hoping that he can sort of get back to that, basically.
Definitely. And I will feel really bad for Kings fans if he's not, because the next selections in this draft were Ware and
yeah.
So that would be really tough for Kings fans if those guys panned out and Devin Carter does not. So Sam, you're up. I believe this is your last pick. So you are muted currently.
Sorry about that. Let's go. I can take Tristan Silva here. There's a couple of other guys. You know what? Give me Jonathan Mogbo.
Nice.
Give me the Mogbo pill. Trill's shaking his head.
I just don't know much about Mogbo. I know that his defense is good and that he can handle the ball a little bit. My opinion on the Raptors guys shouldn't matter at all, really, because I feel like I watch them less than any team in the NBA.
I watch Mogbo and he just like looks like he belongs. And I feel like we're at the part of the draft where it's like if a guy looks like an NBA player, walks like an NBA player, talks like an NBA player, like I'll take him. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I don't think it's the easiest context to succeed in. Those like weird Raptors, like young guys lineups. So I'll take him. Let's go.
There are a few guys we've taken that are actual rotation players that we have not selected, which Dalton Connect, like I know he just got traded, but like Dalton Connect like had a stretch where he looked really good this year. Now, I've never been a Dalton Connect guy. I had him like 18 on my board, maybe 17, I think, pre-draft, which is about the range he got drafted in. But like probably going to be a bench shooter for 5 to 10 years in the NBA.
He needs to figure out where he's getting human trafficked first. They're putting him back in the fucking crate. You're going back to Charlotte.
They're salary dumping him just to get over the embarrassment of trading him.
He's in a fucking custody battle, man. They got to figure out like grandma's house for him. Where's grandma's house? He's got to like get some rotation on the Rio Grande Vipers or something like that until this custody battle can get figured out.
He is that workaholic skiff. Oh my God, I almost died. I was sent to the Charlotte Hornets and now I'm back in LA with the Lakers.
He might still die and end up in Charlotte. So
no, they dropped that. It's not happening.
Dropped it.
Yeah, they dropped it. He's in JJ's Uber. Someone's incredibly good.
He literally was. We probably picked him up from the airport.
All right. So Dalton Connect.
Yeah.
Ryan Dunn, who I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third guy, I know this is people are going to be like, are you fucking serious? Because I've also not been high on this guy. But if we're just going based on flashes and we're throwing all production out the window, Isaiah Collier has had moments recently. Once again, I'm not taking him. I'm not taking him. I'm just.
I was going to say.
I'm just saying.
A me pick.
I'm just saying. I'm not taking him. I'm just saying, in terms of, I watched him in a game recently, like legitimately. Now maybe he was just hot from mid range, and I caught him at the right time. But he had like some real passing flashes, some real scoring flashes, and the defense isn't a disaster. Now, I'm not going to take guards who can't shoot. I'm not going to take guards who turn the ball over a ton. That's just not the kind of, I didn't like him pre-draft. I don't love him now, but he's at least had moments in the last 2 or 3 weeks where when I watch the Jazz, he's looked like a competent NBA player. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think that he's a complete lost cause. There might be something there with him, which he might just always be a flashes guy because that's what he was in college and that's what he's been in the pros. And he was the number 1 recruit at some point. And I probably should take Ryan Dunn here just based on I like Ryan Dunn pre-draft. I was kind of there's just something there with Ryan Dunn. I can't quit him. But I'm going to go with the other guy that was also a high recruit, because this is a Philadelphia 76ers podcast, kind of, or was at one point. I'm taking Justin Edwards here. By the way, if you want to do a fun side-by-side stat comparison wise, go look at Risacher's stats compared to Justin Edwards' stats. I'm just saying they're not that far off. I was Risacher, Edwards has been a better shooter. The thing with Edwards was I didn't like him in college. I didn't think he really impacted the game. I didn't think that he was an NBA level athlete. There were a lot of things I didn't really like about him. And there are still some things I'm a little bit lower on than your average Sixers fan, because he's playing meaningless kind of basketball this year. But he's very obviously at a minimum, an 8th to 10th man in the NBA. Now I don't know if he's going to be on a ton of winning teams or whatever, but he's wing sized. He can really shoot. The shooting was something that I literally said, if he could become a high level shooter, maybe he could be a bench wing in the NBA. He can shoot, and it's not he stands in a corner and shoots. He shoots above the break. They run plays for him. He can actually shoot off movement a little bit. He's hit a ton of momentum threes for the Sixers this year. Now they lose every one of those games, but it's not his fault that they necessarily lose one of those games. And the driving is real. And the scoring around the basket is real. So he might be a stereotypical bench wing, Morey ball style guy that can play 20 minutes a night, 25 minutes on a good night. And is just, once again, a wing size guy who can dribble and shoot, and that is a useful NBA player. Now, I still think there are athleticism questions. I still think the defense is a lot, and he also can really only dribble with one hand, which I think once that gets onto the scouting report, probably won't be quite as effective as a driver and an on-ball guy. But I think that he, at a minimum, has shown that he belongs. Got an NBA contract recently, and he's an undrafted guy that really is a historical outlier. He's the first number 1 overall recruit in any sort of recruiting site that went undrafted. There's literally only one other guy. I can't even remember his name right now. The last 20 years. So it's possible the college year was an outlier and that he's very obviously going to have an NBA career and that he should have been selected here. Now, are Dalton Connect and Ryan Dunn probably going to have better NBA careers? Yes. But you guys also didn't take them. So I'm not being blamed for this.
We didn't take Tristan da Silva either.
Tristan da Silva too. Yeah. Who's
what?
These are older rookies. Ryan Dunn's not quite as old as these guys, but da Silva and Connect are at a minimum rotation players in the NBA.
Da Silva, I feel bad about because I actually think he's a guy. Dalton Connect and Ryan Dunn, I think, are a little bit more memey players, like meme, players.
Unitasker.
Yes, yeah. I think Tristan da Silva is a real rotation player, though, and I apologize to him for disrespecting him to push a Keshon George agenda who might stink.
That's fair. Yeah, that's definitely fair. All right, just to recap here, let's so we don't hold you too much longer. Speaking of kidnapping, we have I have Khalil Ware 1, Jared McCain 2, Steph Castle 3, Reed Sheppard 4, Clingan 5, Jaylen Wells 6, Matas Buzelis 7, Zach Edey 8, Rob Dillingham 9, Bub Carrington 10, Ron Holland 11, Yves Missi 12, Zaccharie Risacher 13, Kyle Filipowski 14, Alex Sarr 15, Jaylen Tyson 16, Keshon George, however you say his name, 17, Ajay Mitchell 18, Devin Carter 19, Jonathan Mogbo 20, and Justin Edwards 21. So, there you go. Justin Edwards sprained his ankle. The second that I talked about him, he instantly sprained his ankle and did not practice. Amazing.
It's amazing.
I can't even. I should have never taken. Ryan Dunn, come on down. You're replacing Justin Edwards, injury prone Justin Edwards.
Well, something worse happened to him. Oh, the basketball player. Sorry. Sorry. One last joke before we get out of here, folks. Sorry.
Great reference. Great 13-year-old reference.
Yeah, I was gonna say the millennial story hour will never end.
Love that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for you Gen Zs, Google other Ryan Dunn, and you'll find a fun story.
Yeah.
All right, Jack, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Sorry for taking so long, but that's kind of what we tend to do here.
Let's plug Jack's stuff.
Yeah,
follow
Jack.
Yeah,
you can plug your pod. I'm bad at this.
Thank you guys for having me on. I will happily join anytime. It's lined up with half term, so sleep schedule does not matter. Which I can sleep until midday tomorrow. Can't wait. But go and check out the Drop Step podcast. Go and check out the Drop Step YouTube channel and Substack. Second article coming soon, guys. Bit of slop for theoretical fake slop. I think the Lakers should trade for DeAndre Ayton this offseason.
Let's go.
Wow.
Let's hang her.
So if you want to read about that.
Last time Jack was on stream, he predicted that the Nuggets would try to trade for Zach LaVine, which at some point they did.
Alas.
It was literally the Michael Porter Jr. for Zach LaVine trade. Wasn't that the idea behind it? Yeah. So you were ahead of your time. So DeAndre Ayton, Luka and DeAndre Ayton on the Lakers to torture the 2018 Kings, I guess would be
I think
would be the only ones. I guess Mavericks fans would also be suffering because they traded Luka. But all right, Jack, thank you for joining. Appreciate it. I'll put the links in the description for Jack's stuff as well. We'll be back later with the Patreon episode later this week.
She's telling people it's Elon's. I gotta go, guys. I gotta figure this out.
See you guys.
Actually, I thought we had a deal.